First part of the Relearn packet here. And the first part deals with your basic factoring skills. Now, when I look at the first question, we're going to use, first off, I'm not positive that these all came from the test. Whether they did or didn't, I want you to do this section before I do it, so that you can follow it along. If these are the exact same questions from the test, then you don't need to redo it, but I don't think that they are. All right, look, the first two questions are basic, straightforward factoring of trinomials. And for those, we use the AM method. You have to add to the middle term, multiply to the last term. Our first focus is on the multiplication. So how can I possibly multiply out to equal negative 36? Well, there's negative 36 and 1. There's negative 1 and 36. There's 2, negative 2 and 18. There is negative 18 and 2. There's negative 4 and 9. There's 4 and negative 9. And then there's 6 and negative 6 and the other combination therein. So as I look at this, I ask, which one do I add up to a 5? And the answer to that is right here. So that means my factors are going to be n minus 4 times n plus 9. Now, perhaps the most important thing to understand when it comes to factoring is to always do a quick mental check back. And my biggest thing looking at the test is that kids did not do this. N times n is n squared. N times 9 is 9n. Negative 4 times n is negative 4n. Now, negative 4n's and positive 9n's add up to positive 5n's, which is what you want. And then negative 4 times 9 is negative 36. So I know that that is correct. Likewise, I look at the next one and use the AM approach. So the question is, what two numbers multiply out to positive 16 and add up to positive 10? In this case, it would be a plus 8 times a plus 2. Let's do a quick mental check. A times a is a squared. 8 times 2 is 2a. 8 times a is 8a. 2a and 8a is 10a. 8 times 2 is 16. Now, let's just do a wrong guess. Let's guess a plus 4 times a plus 4. The quick mental check will reveal the problem. A times a is a squared. So far, so good. A times 4 is 4a. 4 times a is 4a. 4a and 4a add up to 8a's. It's supposed to be 10a's. That can't be the answer. Okay? So those are basic, fundamental skills. Now, let me just go off to the side because I think there was another one that you were asked to factor in there that looked something like this. It was either later in a quadratic equation. If it is, it'll come up. Otherwise, it was now something like this, 3v squared plus 11v. The first thing you're always supposed to do whenever you factor, and I slept over it on the first two because people do that, is you look for a common factor. In this case, they share a v in common, so you got to pull out the v they share in common, and I get v plus 11. See, too many people go right for double bubble or double packages. No, always look for something they share in common. In these first two questions, they don't share anything in common because the last term does not have a variable. Here, they share a v in common because the last term did have that variable, and then if I distribute back, I get 3v squared plus 11v. Well, when I see the word completely, this is code. Remember in class, I said if my father called me Robert Carl Lindquist Jr., that meant the beatings were about to begin. Likewise, if it says factor completely, that is code for 2 steps. And you have to do 2 steps. And the first one is always to look, not always, but it's usually to look for a common factor. That should be where you start anyway. So that, in that sense, it is an always situation. I look and I see right away that they all share a 2 in common. And that leaves me with b squared minus 3b plus 2. I can do a quick mental check back. 2 times b squared is 2b squared. Then 2 times negative 3b is minus 6b, and 2 times 2 is 4. But you can't stop there. You need to factor the trinomial. And this is where kids have a problem. Kids will rush to factor this. It's like, oh, I gotta get that right. B minus 1, B minus 2, that is right. Do a quick mental check on your own. You'll see that it works. But they leave off this 2 from the answer. So many kids do that. And I did warn you before the test, that's a very common mistake. So I suggest when you do this, that you should first write the 2. Immediately write the 2. Then worry about factoring it. That way, you don't forget about that 2. Okay? All right, next up, number 5. Number 5 says to factor completely. Again, key word, completely. Now, you need to have certain recognitions. We talked in class about how my niece is in first grade over at River, and rather than sound out every word, they have certain sight recognition words, and my sister has like a list of these on a wall in her house of like 50 words. And every day she takes my niece and she says, Giada, what's this word? And she points and she'll say, the. What's this word? I don't know what the words on the list are, but maybe something simple like hat. What's this word? Bat. What's this word? Car. Very simple, recognize them, see them. Well, we have something we need to recognize when we come to factoring, and that is the difference of 2 perfect squares. Now, what the difference of 2 perfect squares means is difference is subtract, hence the minus sign there. And then you can square root each of the first terms. Now, a very simple one is something like x squared minus 9. The difference is the subtraction. I can square root the x squared, and I can square root the 9. So it would be x plus 3, x minus 3. And it's a pattern, and we took time in class to develop that pattern. If you need to, you can go back and check that pattern out. If you struggle with it, you can see me at Extra Help and I'll go through it more. But if I apply that pattern here and I square root and square root, I'm going to get x squared minus 4y squared and x squared plus 4y squared. Now, the reason this is so important is when I have like x squared minus 9, there are really 0 x's in the middle. And these numbers must match so that when I do my double distribute back, I get a positive 3 x's and a negative 3 x's, which add up to 0 x's, which is what was in the middle all along, but because there were 0 of them, we didn't bother writing it. Well, likewise here, when I double distribute back, I'm going to get plus and minus 4x squared y squared. So it adds up to 0x squared y squared, which is what there is in the middle of those 2 terms. But what I notice is I can again square root the difference of 2 perfect squares, and that's that word completely. 2 steps. So in this particular problem, I'm now going to get x plus 2y, x minus 2y, times x squared plus 4y squared. This entire expression must be included in your answer. The order is not important, but they must be included. Okay? So you have to learn to recognize the difference of 2 perfect squares situation. Read it, react to it, know to square root both, and the signs have to be opposite, and the numbers have to be the same. If I distribute back here, x times x is x squared, x times negative 2y is minus 2xy, then I do in here, it's plus 2xy, that is up to 0xy, which is what I wanted, and 2y times negative 2y is minus 4y squared. Okay. Next up, factor 3x squared plus x minus 2. And I now do exactly what I would normally do, which is look for a common factor, but there is none. So I go to plan B. The common factor is plan A. I get x squared plus x minus 6, which that factors using AM to x plus 3 times x minus 2. But I changed the question when I multiplied by 3 here, so now I have to divide back in by 3 to balance that out. First term is x plus 1. Next term, 3x minus 2. If I distribute back and check myself, x times x is, or x times 3x is 3x squared. X times negative 2 is minus 6x. 1 times 3x is plus. X times negative 2 is minus 2x. 1 times 3x is plus 3x. 3x and negative 2x add up to 1x, which is what I want. And 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Okay, so factoring is a super critical skill. You must be good at it. Not okay at it, very good at it. Not only for this year, it's the difference between the kid that could possibly fail or could get a 70, which isn't a very good grade to report to colleges, and the kid that can get the 80 plus, the 85 plus. If you can't get factoring down pat, you're not going to get one of those high grades. So learn it, practice it, get good at it. That's your first part of the Prelearn packet. you.